Hi all, this is Daniel again. As I said in my last video, for me, the goal I have in role-playing is twofold. It's otherworld immersion into a primeval fantasy setting. And I'm just going to focus on the otherworld immersion part because it can be used theoretically in any genre or subgenre. Once we can pinpoint what we want, how do we get it? So for me, I want a really strong sense of otherworld immersion whenever I role play. But we can't just brute force ourselves into it, or any experience for that matter. Role-playing games are art, and all art requires specific methods and tools in order to accomplish its goal. And if you don't change the methods, which I think are the most important for this goal, you're never going to get there. I've been role-playing for many years, and I asked myself through the time of playing how it's possible to generate that strong sense of immersion. And I think this is why it's so important that we understand what role-playing games really are. Again, they are chimeras. They're the melding of miniature wargaming with make-believe. But the answer is not to get rid of game mechanics, as some have suggested. Solid game mechanics are needed. They provide the structure that we need to adjudicate the reality of the secondary world. So how do we go about generating this deeper otherworld immersion? And I think it's by altering the focus of the players. As I said in a previous video, playing under conventional role-playing game methods means toggling between the two disparate mental activities, the meta and the make-believe. And of course, people can play role-playing games in that fashion. They have for decades, so obviously it works for some people. But when we step back and analyze it, we see that doing it in that conventional way generates a divided and diminished experience. And it's that method that leaves people like me wanting. And so the first major step that we made was towards what we call a unity of perspective method. So we're changing our gaming methods in such a way so that the players are much more strongly united with their characters' perceptions, beliefs, etc., and that their focus is away from all mechanics. My initial incorporation of this from, honestly, decades ago regarded any perceptions like searching for someone or something, or if your character was hiding or sneaking. We moved all of those roles behind the GM screen. So the players would tell me what they were doing, for example, if they're searching for something, and I would look at their skill in that area and make whatever roll, and then relay to that player what their character actually concluded. So as I mentioned before, this has a starkly different impact on the players when they don't see any numbers, any die rolls, any mechanics, and they only know what their character would know in each specific circumstance. So through the years, we kept pushing this line of scrimmage back, discovering that the more we did this, the greater the unity of perspective we were generating. We were actually enhancing true mystery, and with it, immersion. So then we began doing this with every creature that they encountered. Instead of the traditional monster manual that the players have access to, which eventually, if you have players long enough in a system, many players are going to memorize that book with every nuance and every special ability, every spell list, etc. And so we just got rid of all of that. And so this required me as a GM to come up with new variations on all the creatures in the world, and that was fine. It was actually painless and fun for me to create it. And now the players, when their characters encounter different creatures in the world, large and small, mundane or supernatural, they themselves have no idea what they are encountering. And that generates excitement and a true unity with their characters. From novels and movies, we all know that, you know, if there's a vampire, it's time to pull out your holy symbols and wooden stakes. If there's a werewolf, everyone get your silver weapons and so forth. So the fun may be in those fights. So you're strategizing, but that entire experience is radically different than one where such a creature is totally engulfed in the mist of mystery. So consider what would happen if the players are facing the Obur, which is a revolting vampiric creature. So in the one instance, there's a monster manual and they can read about it and they know what this creature is, versus here's this reeking, dung-flinging creature that leaps supernaturally from place to place. They can barely see it. It's in the dark, and they smell it more than they see it. And that experience and all that you can do with it, when the players have no idea what this thing is, they simply know that in like a little village, people have been dying in gruesome ways, and now they're encountering it. So they're just night and day experiences. And for the players, ignorance really is bliss, because by they themselves remaining ignorant of a creature like this, or all creatures that they're encountering, the mystery has remained, and therefore the joy of discovery has been given back to them. And this generates a powerful immersion experience. The old conventional method has been good players pretend that their characters don't know about all these things, and that they're maintaining consistency, and that that's fair, and it keeps a balance in the game. Okay, fine, that is true, but step back and take a look at how that method damages the mystery and the unity and immersion that many of us want. So as the years went on, my groups kept pushing that line further, and now, just over the past few years, we have finally gone all the way. So this is what's known as complete player opacity. And this goes back to 1975 or so, where the gamer Sandy Eisen wrote his letter to Gygax and came up with what he or someone else called Eisen's vow, which was that he wanted to return to that wonderful feeling from the first time that you role play, that mystery and that wonder of being a character in this other world. And therefore, his vow, quote unquote, was that all of the players would know nothing about the mechanics or any of the algorithms, etc. They would purely be focused on their character's experience. And that, I think, is the key. And that is what I am very much a proponent of. So this is where we are now. All of the rules are ignored by the players. Everything about the mechanics, the classes, each character's attributes and skills, creatures, monsters, whatever. Everything is hidden from them. Even the math and the die rolls of combat, which I used to think was undoable, and it's really not. I have a manageable system for everything that's happening, and in combat, when you are wounded, I tell you where you're wounded and how dire it seems to you or how superficial it seems to you. It's all doable. And the marked difference that all of the players have expressed is significant, that since they don't have to look at any numbers, they never roll any dice, they're purely standing in the boots of their characters. All right, so here are some more specific methods that help pull people into their characters by altering some more gaming methods. So a huge one is get rid of the God's eye view. None of us see reality from some lofty Archimedean perch. Likewise, the descriptions that the GM should give the players should be from a finite, feet-on-the-ground perspective. Players should not see the real game maps, either small or large scale, because this pulls them into a wargaming meta mindset. Instead, the players should be given first-person descriptions. We should draw mental pictures for them and usher them into whatever setting they're in by making everything three-dimensional. So show them, the 3-foot tall grass waving in the wind, and the swaying of the oaks and the birches, and the heat of the day. You don't have to wax poetical, but you as a GM can do so much to plant the seeds and water the soil of the imagination for your players. Remember that the word imagination is rooted in images. So describe the images to enrich the world and each setting that they're in. Actual photographs and maybe even some muted videos, if you are playing online, are fantastic tools. If you find images matching the scenery and objects of the setting that they're in, show those to the players, because pictures really are worth 1,000 words, especially in the 21st century. Contrast two gaming methods when the players are spelunking or traversing a dungeon. With conventional styles, the group may be using a battle mat or the equivalent if you're playing online, where you chart out the dungeon with miniatures or tokens showing where the PCs are and the turns in the dungeon and so forth. This inherited gaming style, while useful for logistical purposes, inevitably puts the players into the wargaming and board gaming state of mind, because the Archimedean perspective detaches the players to some degree from that of their characters. But when GMs help enhance the sense of fear that comes from traversing dark subterranean haunts by keeping the players' points of view united with their characters, saying things like, the rock presses in on you, you feel suffocated, or you can't stop wondering when the tunnel is going to crush you, or things like, you know that these depths are a passageway to the underworld, the birthplace of horrific monsters and demons. So using these descriptive unity of perspective methods helps the players drown in the sensations that their characters would be enduring. And yeah, there are times when sketching out a terrain is useful for the players if those characters would have, a picture of their surroundings that's clear. But in general, the more that we can help them focus on a first-person perspective, the greater their imaginations will flourish in the point of view of their characters. So using all this, the players are completely freed from paying the switching cost. They don't toggle between the two parts of the chimera, the wargaming and the make-believe, because they are completely ignoring all mechanics, all rules. The GM is still using the mechanics. So again, I don't want to imply that mechanics don't matter. They certainly do. And it's impacting all the results, but the players are completely free and unburdened by any of it. Now, again, this is only going to suit the players who have identified what exact role-playing game experience they want. And some gamers really don't want the same kind of otherworld immersion that I do. Some really seem to want the conventional 50-50 split and the focus between the two halves, and that's fine. It's great for them. But I know what I want, and I know many others who crave this kind of immersion. And I found that tools like this are invaluable for getting us there. So give these tools a try, and you may have to have brand new characters. You certainly don't want to try, these brand new methods on characters who have been, long-lived in a big campaign. It may be too much of a jump, but if you have players who profess this kind of appetite, then try new characters and try short campaigns with this change, where all of the rules are totally ignored and all of the creatures may be totally new to them, and see if the players at the end of multiple sessions don't tell you that they're having an immersive experience that they haven't had using conventional methods. All right, thanks for listening. If you know other gamers who crave this kind of immersion in their games, please share this with them. Comment here or find me on Twitter as well. I'm always open for good discussion about method and how to reach our goals. Thanks all.